If you don't know Pierre Boulez, he was a very prominent French conductor and composer of the last century. And especially as a composer, he was a very polarizing figure because he fronted the total serialist movement, which was already, the serialist movement was already pretty controversial in itself. And I'm not going to explain like all the music history or theory behind that. If you're interested in that, you can look up 12-tone music starting with Arnold Schoenberg, and it's a whole like very complicated topic that I have only just begun digging into the surface of. So Boulez was a very adamant adherent to this style, and pretty famously so. He was kind of known as a bully as a younger composer. He dissed his teacher's music, Olivier Messiaen. He said that one of his pieces was brothel music, and then he said that any composer, or I don't know, people that don't experience the necessity of serious music, he said were useless. So you could see where that could go. But I wanted to try playing these pieces because his music is still really, really interesting. And I actually haven't listened to too much of it. And also, I never actually considered playing any of his music before this just because it sounds so difficult, and it is. But the notations do sound a little bit easier than the other piano pieces. Although I don't know his full catalog of works. So it was a really eye-opening experience because they are really hard and requires a lot of control. And the biggest part that scared me was the rhythmic precision because he notates all these very specific rhythms. And what was so eye-opening was I watched a video of him explaining the notations, and he says rubato is necessary for this piece, which really shocked me because if you like kind of know of total serious music, like, or at least from my understanding of it, I thought, the composition process is so strict. Wouldn't that translate into a very strict performance? And I guess in this case, not necessarily. Like, a bunch of performances will sound different, and that really shocked me because I remember I listened to one of the recordings for the first time, and like I was counting the beats, and I was like, that they're taking time, they're taking a lot of liberty in this, and I was like really confused. And then I watched the video of Boulez talking about it and explained a lot, and definitely made it easier in a way, but also harder. Like, I don't have to be as precise with each rhythm, but the thing is, it's like, where does this rubato like work best or play, because it's such a different language. And it's kind of like playing Bach. Like, you require so much control, and it's a completely different like language from classical and romantic music. And it's like pedaling too, like I don't even sorry, it's like, where do you put the pedal? Like, he notates pedals sometimes, but in the recordings, like, you'll hear people pedal in like different places. And so yeah, it was like, that was crazy for me. And for the improvisations, I wanted to do something like vaguely like similar in terms of how he creates these structural connections throughout the piece. Like, each notation has like one kind of main idea, but I feel like the earlier one, like the first 3 or 4, have more like differences, like different ideas happening, and then as you go like to notation 12, like it's just like one idea per, or actually is, yeah, like more like it's more like, I don't know if that's the right word. It just feels like less different stuff is happening. But even when it's like less different stuff, or like there's a couple more, it seems like more distinct fragments, there's always like a vague structural connection going on. And like, I haven't really like fully analyzed the pieces, so I don't know exactly like why these things are happening in certain places, but I think that's an interesting experiment, and I can't keep track of tone rows while I'm improvising, so I think it's actually like really hard, like impossible to really like emulate a this kind of music in improvisation, but I think it's fun to try.